Most gardeners leave their soil bare going into winter, and honestly, that single mistake is quietly undoing an entire season of work. The moment soil is exposed to cold, wind, and heavy rain, you start losing structure, nutrients begin leaching out, and microbial life drops hard. By the time planting season comes back, you're not starting where you left off. You're starting from behind. I've seen beds that were rich and productive in late season turn compact, lifeless and slow just a few months later simply because they were left uncovered. Before we get into how to fix that properly, there's one small upgrade that helps maintain consistency year-round, especially when you're building soil instead of just feeding plants. I use a compact kitchen composter, the 4-litre electric composter for kitchen, to process food waste continuously, even during colder months when outdoor composting slows down. One of the biggest winter mistakes is letting organic inputs stop completely. This keeps that cycle going so you always have material ready to feed your soil. I'll leave the exact one I use in the description if you want to check it out. Because here's the key. Protecting soil in winter isn't about covering it. It's about keeping it alive. And that's where the living lattice method comes in. Let's talk about why most winter soil protection methods fall short. A lot of gardeners rely on mulch alone, straw, leaves, wood chips, and while those help, they're not enough on their own, especially in harsh conditions. Mulch protects the surface, but it doesn't actively hold the soil together, so when heavy rain hits, nutrients still leach. When temperatures drop, microbial activity still declines, and when wind dries things out, you still lose moisture from deeper layers. I've tested thick mulch layers up to 10 centimeters and still saw compaction underneath by early spring. The soil wasn't dead, but it definitely wasn't thriving. That's when I started testing cover crops more seriously. And well, one specific approach stood out. Here's what I mean by a living lattice. Instead of planting a single cover crop, you grow a dense, interwoven mix of plants that create a living network across and below the soil. Think of it less like a crop and more like a system. You combine fast-growing ground cover with deep-rooted species and fibrous root plants. Together they form a lattice that physically holds soil in place while feeding it biologically. Above ground they shield the surface. Below ground, roots bind the soil, create channels, and support microbial life. In one of my raised beds, I used a mix of clover, rye, and radish going into a cold season. Within weeks, the soil surface was completely covered. But the real effect showed up later. After heavy rains, there was no runoff, no erosion. When I checked below the surface, the soil was still loose, structured, and full of life. Compared to a mulched bed next to it, the difference was obvious. And here's where it gets interesting. The benefits don't stop in winter. So why does this method actually improve your next growing season? Most people, think of winter as downtime for soil. But that's not really how biology works. With a living lattice in place, roots keep interacting with microbes, even when it's colder out. Nutrients are held in place instead of being washed away, and organic matter builds up slowly. So when spring comes around, your soil isn't really waking up. It's already active. In that same testbed, I cut the cover crops right at soil level and left the roots undisturbed. Within about 2 weeks, the soil was ready for planting. No digging, no heavy amendments needed. And honestly, the plants that followed grew faster than anything I'd ever planted in bare or mulched beds. This is the part most gardeners tend to miss. Healthy soil isn't actually built in spring. It's maintained through winter. All right, let's break down how to build your own living lattice. Start with diversity. You want at least 3 types of plants working together. A nitrogen fixer like clover, a grass such as rye or oats, and a deep-rooted plant like radish or turnip. Each one really plays a role. Clover feeds nitrogen into the system, Grasses create dense root mats that stabilize your soil, and deep-rooted plants break up compaction and pull nutrients from those lower layers. The ratio doesn't have to be perfect, but I've had the best results using roughly equal parts by seed weight. Just broadcast the seeds directly onto your soil surface and lightly rake them in. You don't need to bury them deep, just enough contact with the soil. Then water them in and let them establish. Timing matters here. You want to plant early enough for them to develop before temperatures drop too far. In cooler regions, that might be late summer or early fall. Once established, the system pretty much takes care of itself. And here's something most people overlook. You don't need to maintain it like a regular crop. This is about letting nature do the work. What happens beneath the surface is what really matters. As the plants grow, their roots begin forming a network underground. This network improves aeration, increases water infiltration, and creates pathways for microbes. In one of my test plots, I measured how quickly water was absorbed after heavy rain. The living lattice bed absorbed water nearly twice as fast as bare soil. That's not just convenience, that's protection against erosion and nutrient loss. And over time, those roots die back and become organic matter. So you're not just protecting soil, you're building it. Now here's the part that usually concerns people. What do you do with it when planting season comes back? Let's talk about how to transition without damaging your soil. The mistake most gardeners make is pulling everything out or tilling it under. That breaks the system you just built. Instead, cut the plants at the surface and leave the roots in place. Let the top growth act as mulch. This preserves the soil structure and keeps microbial networks intact. In my own beds, I use a simple method. Cut, wait about 1 to 2 weeks, then plant directly into the residue. No digging, no turning. And the results speak for themselves. Better moisture retention, fewer weeds, and stronger early growth. Even in containers, a modified version of this works. You can grow smaller cover crops, cut them back, and let the roots improve your soil mix over time. It's slower, but the benefits are still there. Now let's address a common misconception that holds people back. A lot of gardeners believe cover crops compete with your main crops. That's only true if you manage them poorly. When used correctly, they prepare the soil instead of competing with it. The key is timing and termination. You're not growing them alongside your crops. You're using them to set the stage. And once you see how much easier planting becomes after using this method, it changes how you think about soil completely. Because you're no longer trying to fix problems later. You're preventing them before they start. So here's what I recommend if you want to try this. Start with one bed. Choose a simple mix. Clover, a grass, and a root crop. Broadcast it evenly and let it establish. Observe how the soil behaves through the colder months. Check moisture levels, structure, and how the surface holds up against weather. Then compare it to a bed you left bare or only mulched. The difference will be clear, and once you see that, it becomes hard to justify leaving soil exposed again. Because this isn't just about winter protection. It's about building a system that works year-round. If you're serious about improving your garden, whether it's raised beds, containers, or larger plots, this is one of those methods that compounds over time. Subscribe if you want more practical, tested techniques like this, and share this with someone who's still leaving their soil exposed every winter, because once you understand how to keep soil alive through every season, everything else in gardening starts working better with less effort.